The first thing I remember is the sound. Not the kind you hear, but the kind that lives inside your skull. A low, vibrating hum that never stops. It's in the walls and the pipes in the goddamn air. It's the sound of a refrigerator upstairs running day and night, like a heartbeat I wasn't allowed to have. I was 29 when I disappeared. Not vanished, just erased. He told everyone I ran off. Left him. Abandoned our life. But I was always there. Just beneath their feet. The basement wasn't a room. It was a coffin with a light bulb. Concrete walls, no windows, a mattress that smelled like mildew and piss. He didn't chain me. Didn't need to. The door was steel, bolted from the outside. No handle on my side. No key. Just a slot where food came through. I lost track of time. Days bled into nights. Seasons meant nothing. I marked the wall at first, scratching lines with my fingernails. But nails break. Skin bleeds. Eventually I stopped counting. He'd come down sometimes. Not to talk. Just to look. Stand there smug like he was admiring a painting he'd made. I'd ask why. Beg. Scream. He never answered. Just smiled. The worst part? I could hear life happening above me. Laughter. Music. Footsteps. Sometimes voices I recognized. Friends. Family. They visited. Had coffee. Chatted. All while I was rotting below. I tried everything. Screaming until my throat bled. Banging on pipes. Once I set the mattress on fire. Smoke filled the room and I thought, finally someone will notice. He came down, furious, and beat me until I couldn't move. Then he replaced the mattress and added a smoke detector. Years passed. I don't know how many. My body changed. Hair fell out. Teeth loosened. I became a ghost. But my mind? It stayed sharp. Sharper than ever. EasyContent.com. I started listening. Really listening. Every creak, every footstep, every word. I mapped the house in my head. Knew when he left, when he returned, when he was alone. I learned his patterns. One day I heard something new. A voice. A woman's voice. Soft laughing. Then another. Different tone. Different laugh. He had company. Regularly. Different women. I wasn't the only one. That's when I knew. He didn't just want me gone. He wanted me forgotten. Replaced. I waited. Planned. Saved scraps of food, bits of metal, anything I could use. I became a rat, surviving on instinct and spite. Then a miracle. A storm. Power outage. The lock failed. I pushed. Hard. It gave way. I was free. But I didn't run. Not yet. I needed proof. Needed to know what he was hiding. Upstairs. I crept through the house. Silent. Every room was pristine. Untouched. Except one. A locked door. His study. I found the key. Opened it. And what I saw. I'll tell you. But not yet. You need to understand what he did. What he took. Before you can grasp what I found. He didn't just lock me away. He erased me. Filed a missing person report. Held a funeral. Told everyone I was dead. And they believed him. My parents mourned. My friends moved on. No one questioned. No one looked. I was a ghost and he was the grieving widower. But I'm not dead. I'm here. And I remember everything. The smell of damp concrete. The taste of stale bread. The sound of his footsteps above me. The feel of the cold floor against my skin. I remember. And I will make sure the world remembers too. But first, you need to know what was in that room. What he was hiding. What I found. It changed everything. But that's a story for another time. Soon. Very soon. I didn't always live like prey. There was a time I stood tall. Taught history at a high school that barely had working heaters, but damn if I didn't light up those kids with stories. I loved facts. I loved truth. That's what killed me in the end, my obsession with truth. Because when you're with a man like him, truth is the most dangerous thing in the world. He started small. Like they all do. Made me feel silly when I spoke. Told me I was dramatic when I cried. Smiled at other women in ways he never did at me. Then came the gaslighting. Keys vanished. Notes I never wrote suddenly taped to the fridge. He'd say things happened that didn't. He'd insist I was forgetting. I wasn't. I wasn't losing my mind. I was being shoved out of it. The basement wasn't part of the house when we moved in. Came later. I remember the day the contractors arrived. He said it was for wine storage. Said he'd always wanted a place for a hobby. Funny. He never drank wine. Not once. I should have known. He asked me to check the fuse box one night. Said there was a weird buzzing. I opened that door. He pushed. 1 second I was standing on the stairs, the next, air left my lungs and my back hit concrete. My ribs screamed. Then the door slammed shut. I screamed. And screamed. And screamed. Nothing. The food came twice a day. Always the same. Bread. Boiled egg. Apple slices. Water. Sometimes not even that. When I bled, I used rags torn from my clothes. When I was sick, I vomited into a plastic bucket. He never spoke to me. Not once. I wasn't a person. I was a stain. Something he covered with silence. My mind split into two worlds. One that hoped. One that planned. The hopeful one counted on someone hearing me. The planner? She was smarter. She knew no one was coming. That version of me started documenting everything. Scratches for days. Tally marks. But I went further. I memorized footsteps. I counted seconds between them. I learned which shoes creaked on which floorboard. I became a damn human radar. When the vent broke, it was the first shift in power I'd had in years. Just a hairline crack in the rusted frame, but enough. I didn't waste time. I pressed my ear against it and waited. That's when I heard her. Young. Laughing. Not afraid. He was charming again. Rehearsing the same lies he once used on me. He had a whole life going on above me. Parties. Dinners. Lovers. I existed beneath it, rotting like trash. But I listened. And I learned. Names. Dates. One girl I heard crying in the night. That cry stuck with me. Not fear. Regret. Like she'd figured it out too late. But the next morning she was gone. Never heard her again. My blood froze the day I heard him say the name Clarissa. She was missing. I remembered the poster. Found near the post office years back. Same age. Same voice. I realized this wasn't just imprisonment. This was something else. Something worse. I was running out of time. I knew I had to escape. Not just for me, but for every voice I never heard again. I worked on the pipe for weeks. Rusted metal became a weapon. A tool. I sharpened a spoon into a blade. Used water to erode the hinges. I even chewed through the insulation of a wire once, hoping it would short something. I got shocked so bad my vision went white. But I survived. I always did. Then the storm came. Like divine timing. Lightning hit a transformer. Power went out. And the magnetic lock failed. The bolt clicked. Just once. Just soft enough for me to hear it. I pressed the door. It gave way like an old bruise. I should have run. Should have screamed through the halls until someone found me. But I needed to know. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. The thing he never let me have. Upstairs felt foreign. The air too light. My lungs didn't know what to do with oxygen. I moved like an animal, silent, low to the ground, every sense twitching. The house was pristine. As if scrubbed by memory itself. Pictures of him happy. Alone. No trace of me. Then I saw the door. His office. Always locked. Thick wood reinforced. I remembered the small drawer in the kitchen. False bottom. He used to hide gifts there during Christmas. I pried it open. The key was still there. My hand shook. The door creaked. Inside, it smelled like plastic and old cologne. A single desk. A laptop. But what caught my eye was the wall. A map. Pins. Strings. Photos. Women. Not just Clarissa. Not just one. Dozens. Some were smiling. Some looked terrified. Some were clearly taken without their knowledge. Notes next to them. Dates. Measurements. Descriptions. One of me. Labeled first. That's when I knew. I wasn't just a prisoner. I was a prototype. And that's where this story begins. I'm not telling this to make you cry. I don't want your pity. I want your attention. Because I found something else in that room. Something no one was ever supposed to see. And it's the reason he'll never hurt anyone again. But you'll have to wait for that. And if you think I'm done, oh honey, subscribe. You're gonna want to hear the rest. 'Cause now it gets ugly. When I stepped out of that basement for the first time, I wasn't walking, I was crawling through a new kind of prison. My muscles were jelly, but my head was a wildfire. You'd think I'd have screamed, grabbed the phone, called the police. But I didn't. Because when you've lived under someone's thumb for that long, you don't scream. You calculate. He was still gone. Out for one of his little dates, probably wooing the next poor girl with wine and lies. I had hours. And I used every damn minute. I moved through the house like a ghost who knew its killer was still alive. First, I searched for clothes. My old wardrobe was gone. Replaced by suits, pressed shirts, trophies, his ego littered the place like broken glass. I found a hoodie in a box marked Goodwill. Funny. I put it on. It felt like armor. Then I found the drawer. False bottom in the hall desk. That's where he kept the documents. IDs, a few passports. My name wasn't among them, but hers was. Clarissa. And someone named Annette. Both filed, tagged, timestamped. He kept records like a damn archivist. I didn't know what it all meant yet. But I knew it was damning. I had to go back down. I couldn't risk him walking in and seeing me free. Not yet. Not without evidence. Not without power. So I went back. Voluntarily. That's how desperate I was to win. And when I tell you that hurt, that was the deepest wound of them all. I opened that heavy door, stepped inside, and pulled it shut from the inside. Locked myself in. Like some masochist begging for more. But this time I had a plan. Every noise, every visit, every second after that, I was preparing. I was mapping out how to destroy him. I started stashing tools. A spoon under the mattress. A shard of glass behind the panel. Pieces of wire twisted into a lockpick. Crude, sure, but enough. I wasn't waiting for rescue anymore. I was building my own goddamn liberation. I started faking it. The sobbing. The begging. The pitiful little voice. All bullshit. Let him think I was broken. Let him think I'd given up. Because I needed time. I knew from the vent he was seeing someone again. Blonde. Young. Kept calling her Bird in this condescending tone, like he was grooming her with nicknames. One night, I heard them fight. Not screaming, but tension. Her voice shook. She said something about wanting to leave early. Then she was gone. I never heard her come back. I knew that tone. Knew the pattern. He was going to erase her too. Just like me. Just like Clarissa. Maybe worse. That's when the plan accelerated. He got cocky again. Started leaving the door unlatched for longer. Slipped on his schedule. And one night he brought down the food and forgot to lock it. I waited until the house was still. Then I moved. Not out. Not yet. Just enough to plant the first seed. I went upstairs and used his printer. Printed a photo from his little trophy wall. One of the women smiling, glass of wine in hand. I drew a red X across her face. Left it on the hallway floor. Like a calling card. Then I slipped back down. Locked the door myself. The next morning he was frantic. Ripped through drawers. I heard him pacing. He thought someone had broken in. That's the beauty of paranoia, it eats you from the inside. He didn't come down for 2 days after that. Probably trying to figure out who'd been in the house. But the door was locked. The cameras showed nothing. Because there weren't any. He'd always assumed no one could escape. Idiot. Then came the real move. The strike. I had a key to his bank, figuratively speaking. He used a laptop in the study. Basic password. Birth year and initials. Lazy. I watched him type it once through the vent light crack. Stored it in my head. On one of his late night bar crawls, I got back upstairs, powered it on. I didn't need to send anything. I just needed to access the browser. Look at the cache. Find the emails. His cloud. He'd been tracking women online. Dating profiles. Using aliases. Setting up meetups. But the real horror? A folder labeled post. Inside were timestamped recordings. Videos. Of me. Of them. Being watched. Monitored. Monologued over. Like some demented documentary. I copied it to a flash drive I'd stolen from the desk earlier that night. Then I left the laptop open. I made sure he'd notice. I wanted him to feel the heat. Not the flame, just the heat. Enough to sweat. To wonder. To unravel. And he did. The next day the locks were changed. Alarms added. He started carrying a gun. A real one. I heard him load it. Clean it. Paranoia was blooming now like mold. He started drinking more. Talking to himself. Making mistakes. The next week, I planted a letter in his mailbox. No return address. Just a single sentence. The basement isn't silent anymore. He didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. But I smiled. Because now the game was mine. And the next time he looked down at me through that slot in the door, he didn't look smug. He looked scared. And he should have been. Because this old woman? She wasn't just surviving. She was hunting. You ever see a man unravel and not even realize it? That's what he looked like. Like a wolf circling its own reflection, trying to snarl it into submission. He started double-locking the doors. He put a chair against the handle while he slept. I could hear him pacing all night. He stopped bringing women home. Stopped leaving the house altogether. I had him exactly where I wanted him, choking on his own fear, watching shadows that weren't there. He still thought I was locked away. Broken. Helpless. And I let him think that. I let him believe the paranoia came from outside. But no. It was me. It was always me. The thing crawling up through the cracks. The monster he'd made and forgotten. Every time he brought me food now, he'd check the bolts twice. Sometimes 3 times. I could hear him sweating. Breathing heavy like he'd just come back from a run. He'd stare down at me through the slot. Trying to read me. See if I'd changed. But I didn't give him anything. Just dead eyes and silence. Until the night I gave him a smile. That did it. He slammed the hatch shut so hard the frame dented. And I laughed. I laughed until my ribs hurt. I was in his head now. And the next move? I froze his bank account. Not all of it. Just enough to sting. I'd found the info in his documents, his banking app, old passwords on sticky notes like a rookie. I logged in using a public library computer weeks before. Used the fingerprint he'd left on the back of a discarded glass to spoof access on a burner phone. Don't ask how I know how to do that. Let's just say the years underground gave me time to learn. Time and rage are a hell of an education. I transferred $50,000 into a new account under one of the identities I'd found in his files. Annette H. One of his ghosts. It was poetic. He called the bank in a panic. I heard him yell into the receiver. Pacing. Throwing things. Blaming technical errors. But the damage was done. Now the cracks were visible. And he was spiraling. This was the power shift. He started slipping notes through the slot instead of food. Asking me if I was okay. If I needed anything. Pretending to care. It made me want to vomit. I burned them all. One night, I found a camera installed outside the basement door. New. Shiny. Facing the frame. I smiled at it. The next day it was gone. That camera wasn't for me. It was for him. To monitor what he feared would move when he blinked. And it did. He started drinking at noon. Whiskey. Neat. The kind that burns your soul. I'd know. He used to pour it down my throat when he was feeling particularly dominant. I saw the empty bottles pile up by the recycling bin. And then came the night he brought out the gun. He held it for a long time. Cleaned it. Oiled it. Took it apart. Put it back together like he was in some war film. Then he sat on the stairs. Outside my door. Just breathing. I didn't move. Didn't make a sound. He sat there for 2 hours. Then left. It told me everything. He was thinking about it. Ending me. Finishing the job. But he didn't. Because now? He was scared of what I might do if he did. I had become dangerous. Not physically. Not yet. But mentally. Spiritually. I was haunting him in broad daylight. And I wasn't done. I mailed copies of the files from his computer to 3 addresses, a journalist who covered cold cases, a retired detective whose blog I read religiously, and one to the mother of Clarissa. All anonymously. All sealed tight. That was my insurance. Because the truth? I wasn't planning to survive the final confrontation. But I was damn sure going to win it. And the beautiful irony? He had no idea. The final piece came 2 days later. The girl. A new one. He brought her home. I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood. Nervous laughter. That careful tone women use when they're trying not to upset a man who's making them uncomfortable. I froze. Not again. Not her. I couldn't let it happen. So I made a sound. A single knock. Loud. Measured. From the inside of the basement door. He froze. She heard it. And then? She asked what it was. He stammered. Said it was rats. She didn't believe him. She left. I waited in silence. For hours. And then he came down. face pale, hands trembling. He opened the door. Not all the way. Just cracked it enough to see me. And I met his eyes. Not weak. Not afraid. Just ready. He shut the door again. But that was it. That was the last time he ever looked me in the eyes. Because from that moment forward, he knew. It was over. He just didn't know how loud it was going to be. The day I set the final plan in motion, it started just like any other. Quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your teeth ache because your jaw's clenched and you don't even realize it. I sat on the concrete floor of that basement one last time, breathing in the damp air, letting my body memorize it. Not out of nostalgia. No, out of spite. I wanted to remember how the dust choked my throat, how my knees cracked on cold stone. Because after this, I was never going back down there again. I had one move left, and it had to count. I needed him cornered, panicking, desperate, and for that, I needed witnesses. So I left another message. Not in ink. Not typed. In blood. Not a lot. Just a finger prick, smeared across the glass of his bathroom mirror while he showered. A single word. Down. I was upstairs before he even noticed. Hid behind the coat rack like a damn gremlin. He came out of the bathroom half wet, towel slung low, and when he saw the mirror, his whole body locked up, like a machine that just realized it was about to explode. He went straight to the basement. Didn't grab his gun this time. Mistake. I wasn't down there. I was on the roof. Don't ask how. Let's just say survival makes you creative. I waited until I saw him disappear through the back patio door. Then I slipped in through the attic, crawled down the hall and straight into his precious study. He'd never noticed the phone charger missing. Or the burner phone I'd been hiding in the air vent. That phone had every file from his computer copied. Every email. Every recording. I texted the final message from it. You buried the wrong woman. Sent to the same 3 people I'd mailed the folders to, plus one more. 911. Let them trace it. Let them come. I planted the phone under the cushion of his reading chair. And then I sat on the stairs. Waiting. 3 minutes later, I heard the sirens. The glorious screeching sirens. I didn't run. I stayed seated, hair wild, eyes calm, palms open. When the officers stormed in, weapons drawn, I just raised one hand and said, I'm the one you forgot to kill. He came barreling up from the basement, shouting nonsense, saying I was a squatter, an imposter, some mental patient who'd broken in. But the cop who found the flash drive? He didn't look at me like I was crazy. He looked at me like I was a survivor. They cuffed him on the porch. No questions. No hesitation. I watched his knees hit the wood and felt nothing. No joy. No justice. Just silence. Like the kind that follows a long, painful scream. They took me in. Asked questions. Gentle, careful questions. I answered everything. From the moment he pushed me down those stairs to the moment I opened that final locked door. They couldn't believe it. 18 years. 18 years in that house and no one ever heard me. No one ever wondered why I disappeared. Because he was charming. Because he wore nice shirts and had a good lawn. Because I was a woman. And women disappear all the time, don't they? He tried to plead temporary insanity. Said I wanted to be there. That I was sick. That I made it all up. But the footage? The files? They painted a story far darker than mine. Clarissa. Annette. Jules. Women with different eyes but the same ending. He hadn't just trapped me. He tested himself on me. So that by the time he took them, he knew exactly how to make them disappear. Only he didn't count on one thing. I was better at hiding than he was at hunting. When the trial started, I didn't sit in the crowd. I stood. At the front. Eyes level. Hands steady. No tears. I didn't need pity. I needed him to see what he failed to kill. And when the jury foreman read the verdict, guilty on all counts, I finally exhaled. Not because it was over, but because it was mine. The power. The ending. The last word. I never blinked during that verdict. He did though. Rapid. Almost like he was waking up and trying to process a world that no longer obeyed him. For the first time since he built that coffin of a basement, he was the one trapped. No locks, no tricks, no steel doors. Just truth, cold and raw, dragging him under like cement boots. But what they didn't see, what none of them could have seen, was the second twist I'd buried just beneath the surface. While the court gasped and cameras flashed, while the DA shook my hand and called me brave, I was already thinking 2 moves ahead. See, there was one more room in that house. A smaller attic space, covered in insulation, tucked between false walls and hoarder boxes. He used it like a vault, hidden from the blueprints. No one but me had ever been in it. And inside that crawl space was the truth no courtroom could handle. A ledger. Handwritten. Dates. Names. Transactions. Not just trophies or photos, no. These were sales. Black market trades. Trafficking routes. Codes, initials, and dirty fingerprints smeared across the margin. He wasn't just a predator. He was a supplier. And this house? It had been a testing ground. A prequel. I didn't tell the cops. Not yet. Because if I handed it over right away, it'd get buried under bureaucracy, turned into redacted files and cold case footnotes. No. I needed something bigger. So I did what no survivor is supposed to do. I went back. To the house. 1 month after the verdict, I walked through the open front door with a key the authorities forgot to take. It was empty now. Gutted. Stripped of its charm. No rugs. No curtains. No laughter bleeding through floorboards. Just echoes. The realtor hadn't dared list it yet. Bad optics. Too much press. Which gave me time. I opened that attic crawl with gloved hands, yanked the ledger from beneath the insulation, and walked out the front door without a single soul noticing. By the time the sun set, that ledger was scanned, encrypted, and sent to 4 places. A federal journalist with a death wish and a righteous streak. A former trafficking victim turned non-profit crusader. A detective I once taught back in my early teaching years. And a 5th copy? Buried. Under a bench in the park where I used to walk before he stole the sky from me. Insurance. Because justice isn't about courtrooms. It's about exposure. And exposure? Well, it's gasoline. The first article dropped 2 weeks later. Then another. Then the storm. My name trended for 3 days straight. But I didn't give interviews. Didn't write a book. Didn't go on TV. Because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about every woman who vanished and got chalked up as unstable. Every girl who was told she was asking for it. Every mother whose missing daughter's case just didn't have enough leads. I became the shadow in the system. An old woman, face obscured, voice clipped and disguised, feeding documents to reporters, lighting fires where silence used to be. And he? He rotted in a max security cell, stripped of his name, beaten once for mouthing off to the wrong guard, fed the same boiled egg and stale bread I lived on for years. Poetic, isn't it? But if you think that's the end, you're still playing checkers. Because the true twist, the one no one's seen coming yet? I kept something. Not the ledger. Not the flash drives. No. I kept the key. The real one. The one to the second basement. The one even he was afraid to open. Because beneath the house was another level. Deeper. Darker. Worse. He never used it on me. Said it was unfinished. Unsafe. But the plans were in his office. Labeled Project Black Cell. Concrete vault. Soundproof. No ventilation. A room designed not for imprisonment, but for erasure. I don't know if he ever used it on someone else. I don't want to know. But I stood there once, just before they sealed the property off. 1 foot on that cold stairwell, staring into the belly of that unfinished pit. And I whispered, I win. They turned the house into a crime scene, then into a ghost. Boarded up. Condemned. An official told me it might be demolished, for the sake of the community. I told him it should stay. Not because I wanted to remember, but because some buildings need to rot in public. They need to stand there with their scars wide open so no one ever dares pretend again that monsters don't keep good lawns and charming smiles. But even as the dust settled, people asked me what I wanted next. Peace? Redemption? Forgiveness? I wanted none of that. I wanted the silence to stop echoing. You know what it's like to spend 18 years screaming without a sound? To become an afterthought in your own life? It doesn't leave you. It seeps into your bones and makes you flinch at sunlight. So I made a list. Not of the women, those names already had places. On candles. On vigils. On gravestones. I made a list of every person who had looked the other way. The cop who shrugged off the missing person report. The neighbor who said I was always kind of a loner. The cousin who never called back. The principal who replaced me before the end of the semester with a younger blonde. I mailed each of them a photocopy of the original missing poster. My face. My name. A red stamp across it that said, "Still here." Some sent letters. Some cried. Some said nothing at all. Didn't matter. I wasn't doing it for closure. I was doing it because ghosts don't knock. They enter. And I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was thunder. The DA sent me a medal. Victim advocacy group. The kind they hand out to survivors like gold stars for enduring hell. I dropped it into a storm drain on my way home. I didn't survive so they could call me brave. I survived so I could look every other woman in the eye and say, "You're not crazy. You're not weak. And you are not alone." One girl found me. 16. Black eye. Runaway. Said she saw my story on a Reddit thread and knew she wasn't the only one. I let her crash on my couch. Made her tea. Sat with her in silence while she cried so hard her body shook. That was the first night I slept 8 hours in a row. Not because the nightmare stopped, but because they weren't mine anymore. They were shared. Distributed. And somehow that made them lighter. The last time I saw him, I was invited. Court-ordered restitution hearing. He walked in shackled. Smaller. Older. Ugly in the way that guilt rots a face. He wouldn't look at me. I looked straight at him. Not to gloat, but to mark the moment. To make sure the image of the woman he failed to destroy was the last goddamn thing burned into his mind. I didn't say a word. No speech. No tears. Just silence. The kind that follows a verdict. The kind that holds weight. He mouthed something at me. I couldn't hear it. Didn't want to. I just turned and walked away. Out into the sun. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, it didn't feel like an assault. It felt like a hug. I live in a small place now. No basement. No stairs. Lots of locks, but the kind I control. I keep the lights on at night, not because I'm afraid, but because darkness owes me too much already. Sometimes I talk to the other survivors. Online. In person. At shelters. Libraries. Courtrooms. One of them told me I had fire in my eyes. I told her it wasn't fire. It was memory. Burning in place of forgiveness. You ask what I found upstairs? I found power. I found my voice. And I found that no matter how deep they bury you, if you keep your mind, keep your name, even if just inside your head, you can dig your way back out. So here I am. Above ground. Not looking back. And if you're still listening? If you stayed to the very end? Then you've heard what they tried to silence. You've seen what they tried to erase. So don't just watch. Do something. Subscribe. Share this. Say my name. And remember, not every woman waits for rescue. Some of us claw the world open with bare hands. Some of us come back swinging. And some of us never fucking leave. People think when the monster dies, the story ends. That's the lie they sell in books. In movies. He's in handcuffs, you get a check from the state, maybe a new apartment, and somehow just like that, you're healed. Bullshit. The day after the final hearing, I woke up to silence. Not fierce silence. Not the kind that coils around your ribs and makes your ears ring. Just nothing. No footsteps upstairs. No metal hatch clanking open. No voice behind the door pretending it didn't put you there. I lay there on a real bed in real sheets and stared at a ceiling that didn't leak secrets. And I didn't know what the hell to do with it. Freedom is quiet. Terrifyingly quiet. People sent cards. Flowers. Apologies wrapped in Hallmark lines like, "You're so brave," and "Justice wins." I stacked them on the counter. Never opened a single one. They didn't know me. They didn't bury 18 birthdays beneath concrete. One day, a woman approached me outside the grocery store. Said she recognized me from the news. She had tears in her eyes. Told me she'd followed the trial. Told me she couldn't believe I survived. I looked her dead in the eye and said I didn't survive. I waited. She didn't understand. That's the thing about people on the outside. They think survival is noble. Like it's something to be proud of. But you don't survive 18 years in a cage without learning how to shut down the parts of yourself that make you human. You don't cry. You don't feel. You don't hope. You count cracks in the wall and catalog silence like scripture. And when it's finally over, you're not a phoenix rising. You're a shell with a spine. A woman-shaped echo. So I started walking. Every morning, 5 a.m., before the world made noise. Through streets that forgot my name. Past houses where the curtains twitched because people still whispered when they saw me. I let them call me the one who lived. Because that was better than what I used to be, the one who vanished. The town changed while I was gone. New cafe where the bookstore used to be. Same sheriff though. He didn't look me in the eyes the day I saw him. Just nodded, like I was a neighbor he couldn't place. He'd been the one who filed the missing persons report. Probably closed it after a year. Probably forgot all about me. I didn't forget. I never forget. Every sidewalk I walked became a reckoning. I started writing again. Not stories. Names. Dates. Voices I remembered. Women I'd heard cry above me. Whispers that drifted down the air vents like ghosts begging not to disappear. I wrote them down. I gave them space on the page. Because if the world was going to forget them, I damn sure wouldn't. One night, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a piece of notebook paper, torn and folded 4 times. It said, I heard you. I'm still alive. Thank you. No name. But I knew that handwriting. It was the girl from the storm night. The one who fought back. The one I knocked for. She got away. Somehow. That letter cracked me wide open. I wept for 3 hours straight. Ugly, silent, body-shaking sobs that felt like they'd been waiting 18 years to escape. I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the last one. And I wasn't done. That letter didn't just crack me, it lit something. A spark I didn't even know I was still capable of holding. Like a rusted engine coughing to life after decades of cold. She lived. One of them lived. And if one lived, others might have too. That was all the permission I needed. I didn't go to the police. Didn't trust them. They'd had 18 years and never found me. Never heard me screaming through floor vents or read the bruises in the shadows. No, this wasn't about their system anymore. It was about mine. So I made a list. Not names. Skills. People who owed me favors. People I'd taught. A mechanic who still remembered me from when I helped him pass history class with AC+. A former student who grew up to be a data analyst. A nurse who once confided in me that her sister was trafficked and nobody gave a damn. I didn't ask them for anything big. Just pieces. One told me how to spoof a number so I could call shelters anonymously. One helped me pull archived police reports. Comb through missing persons files that went cold. Another taught me how to trace burner phones, without leaving a digital footprint. I never gave them the full picture. Didn't need to. They saw it in my eyes. This wasn't a woman asking for charity. This was a woman building something. One of the shelters gave me a fake name to use. Rachel. Said it would be easier for survivors to trust me that way. I said no. I told them the truth. Told them my name. Told them everything. I figured if someone was going to lie to these women, it wouldn't be me. So I sat in circles with them. Held their hands. Let them talk. And sometimes I didn't talk at all. I just listened. Because what most people don't understand is that sometimes, the best thing you can offer isn't a solution. It's a presence. It's the stillness of someone who knows exactly what screaming into the dark feels like. One of them, young, maybe 19, couldn't say her name without stuttering, asked me once, "Do you think they ever regret it? What they did?" I told her no. I told her they don't regret the harm. They regret the exposure. And then I told her the only thing that mattered. They don't get to define you. I could see her spine straighten. That's when I knew. My revenge? It wasn't just the trial. It wasn't the prison sentence. It was this. Sitting across from another woman and giving her something that monster tried to take from me. Dignity. Not the polite kind. Not the tea-sipping, hat-wearing, white-gloved bullshit version. The kind that bleeds. That crawls. That burns down whole houses and still walks barefoot through the ashes. That's the dignity I reclaimed. And let me tell you, once you taste it again, you don't forget it. I didn't plan to make it public. But stories leak. Survivors talk. And before I knew it, someone wrote an article. Widow turned watchdog. Disgusting headline. But I let it stand. Because buried in the article was the truth. I wasn't here to be pitied. I was here to protect. So I kept going. Kept walking the edge between light and shadow. Every town has its secrets. Every city has a basement no one talks about. But now they knew there was at least one woman who would crawl into that dark and drag it out kicking. And they didn't know where I'd show up next. Some nights I sit in the dark, just to remember what it was like to be invisible. I leave the lights off. Unplug the fridge. Let the world hum to silence. I sit barefoot on the floor, legs pulled to my chest, breathing through my nose like I used to, slow measured so I didn't waste air. And I remember. Not out of trauma. Not for pity. But because forgetting would be the real death. You don't walk out of a prison like that and become normal again. There is no return to before. There is no version of me left that wears perfume and worries about laugh lines. That woman died down there. And I buried her myself. What came back was something older. Wilder. Hungrier. I don't sleep in the center of the bed. I sleep near the wall. Every night. Even now. Because some habits aren't born of fear, they're born of adaptation. And adaptation kept me alive. Sometimes people ask if I ever got justice. I tell them justice is a myth people invent to sleep at night. I didn't get justice. I got victory. And there's a difference. Justice would have been never having to fight. Victory means I fought and won, but I bled for every inch. And it means I still bleed. Quietly. With purpose. I don't celebrate birthdays anymore. Instead, I light one candle for each year he tried to erase me. 18 flames. Each one held until my fingers shake from the heat. Then I blow them out all at once. Like exorcising the years. I've never been afraid of ghosts. I became one. But I've learned ghosts don't haunt houses. They haunt memory. And now I haunt him. Not in his cell. Not in his sleep. But in the absence. The silence between court dates. The hiss of a radio static. The echo of my voice when he tells himself I'm gone. Because I'm not. I'll never be gone. He made sure of that. So now I exist in the cracks of this world. The pauses. The moments where you feel like you're being watched. Not by someone behind you, but by something inside you. That's me. The part of you that knows better. That flinches at locked doors. That shivers when a man raises his voice, even if he doesn't mean harm. That instinct. That chill? That's not paranoia. That's memory. That's survival. That's me. And maybe that's the only gift I have left to give. I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to make sure you never forget. That your neighbor could be hiding a horror behind his garden hedge. That charm doesn't cancel cruelty. That monsters wear nice watches and donate to charity and pull your chair out at dinner. That you should never stop knocking no matter how many times no one answers. I knocked for 18 years. And now? Now I knock back. So if you're still watching, still listening, then maybe you feel it too. That shiver down your spine. That voice in the back of your skull whispering that something isn't right. Good. Hold on to that. Don't look away. Don't forget my name. Because I'm not a headline. Not a cautionary tale. Not a survivor. I'm the reminder. The scar across the narrative. The nail they couldn't pull out of the floorboards. And every time you hear a voice they tried to silence, a woman laughed off. A girl ignored. A victim blamed. I want you to hear me. Screaming behind the drywall. Breathing through the vents. Knocking from beneath your feet. Because I didn't come back for applause. I came back to make sure they never build another basement like mine again. Now go. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this if you dare. And leave the light on tonight. You never know who's still listening.